That's working now. All right, you guys ready? All right, you guys online ready? All right, today is Sunday, April 2nd, and it's 2023, and this is my little Bible study. We're in Sunday night edition, which is the book of Genesis. We're going to be in chapter 12. All right, now we're switching gears a little bit. Genesis is classically broken down into three sections. What we just finished, all the way from in the beginning up to the Tower of Babel. And we got from Abraham, and then the next section starts with Abraham. And you got Abraham and Sarah and the things that happened to them, with Isaac being their son. And then the seed is called in Isaac for the 12 tribes, which we're going to start getting into that, with Jacob and Esau. All right, now Jacob gives a little bit of trickery, let's just call it. We'll read all about it as we get there. He gets Esau to trade him his birthright for a bowl of soup, all right, which ends up being a really big deal. Because we're talking about God's promise to these individuals. And they understand that their relationship, that they were patriarchs for nations. They understood exactly what was going on. All right? So in reality, what Esau does is he trades his heritage for a poor man's suit, which is really taking God's promise and just kind of going out the window. All right, but we'll talk a lot about Esau when we get there, because the thing that you need to bear in mind is all the players that we see today in the last days, and if you watch the news and things like that, they're all functioning and working just fine. The first one, other than Abraham, that we're going to talk about with any kind of a real focus, is Ishmael, which is Abraham's first son. All right, and there's a lot with him. He's one of the major players today. Esau, he's another one. Jacob has a divided house of Israel, so two separate houses for that. Plus, Abraham is the father of many nations, so there were a lot of other ones. You got the Canaanites like Canaan. We're talking about the days of Noah. All right, Canaan does pretty good after Noah drives him away. He becomes his own region and nation. Eventually, the tribes would go back into the land of Canaan. All right? So all these players are still working and going on today. And some of them are coming to unfold in a big way in the last days. We have China and Esau making alliances. We have Saudi Arabia and the Assyrian, which is Iran, making alliances. All those have their beginnings right here in the book of Genesis, all these people with their patriarchs and their fathers. Now, much of the attitudes about these individual patriarchs are still maintained in the people that they represent to this day. I mean, not much has changed about any of it, really. So when people start to talk to you about the book of Genesis and how this section of it's just kind of antiquated and just some old stuff someone wrote about a long time ago, doesn't have any real direct application, and we're going to do a little bit better job and see if we can pull a little bit of that out anyway. Now, Abraham up here first, I think this is a good love story with Abraham and Sarah. All right, it is clear that Abraham is a man that is just smitten in love with Sarah. She must have been a really beautiful woman, because everybody references this as we go through it. You'll see that's something that everybody knows about his wife Sarah. All right? Now, I forget where it says it, but Abraham and Sarah are actually half brother and sister. Okay, I have to dig it out, but I can find it. I've found it before. But this is one of the last times that this will actually happen before it becomes illegal. All right, because remember, that's the first thing out of the gate about marriage. It says don't marry anyone who's close to kin to you, right? And it goes through chapters explaining who that is and what their relationships, and it even extends to like stepchildren. Like it would be, like say I was married, oh, let's take mine with her. All right, she's got an older daughter, right? Well, now the law says that I can marry her, but I can't take her daughter to wife too. That's just, you can't do that. All right, and it happens again. Jacob does that. Or sisters. You can't do it with sisters. Jacob does that with sisters, right? Well, after that, it becomes a law. Now, nothing's illegal until it's said not to do it, first of all right? We kind of ran into some of those things, all right, because we have this incestuous relationship with Ham and his mother. All right, later on, these kind of relationships are all outlawed, according to Scripture, right? But this is one of those exceptions before it happened, right? So let's pick it up. That's enough of me running my mouth. More than I meant to say anyway. Oh, I lied. I got some more to say. We'll do it here at the beginning. Okay, tonight is the night before the biblical Passover begins. All right. This is that day. You remember the Last Supper, that picture of the Last Supper that everybody says is the Passover? Well, this is the night that supper actually took place. Okay, this is the day before Passover. All right? Tomorrow night, when the sun goes down, what does that mean to Christians, right? Well, remember this. Tomorrow night, when the sun goes down, is the exact solar day that Christ enters the tomb. All right, it will be between tonight and tomorrow night that he will be taken, tried, and then executed and be placed in the tomb. All right, so that's a big deal to Christianity, or it should be anyway. But every year, largely, these things just kind of go overlooked, and mostly because we don't teach the Old Testament anymore. All right. We started out law studies really with the law of Passover. That was the first one of the first laws that we talked about, right? There's the law of Passover, the first one given in the book of Exodus. I mean, we're on Sunday, and in Genesis, but it's still. All right, so that's something I wanted to bring up. If anybody else says, what does that mean? What does the biblical Passover really mean to me? Well, that marks the exact time. Tomorrow night, when the sun goes down, is that day. It's not an approximation. It's not a holiday we celebrate based off Babylonian gods. It's not any of that. All right, but it is the day that the event actually occurred. I think that's something to note. And we'll be having Passover at our house if you can come if you want. All right, but and you just come after work whenever you're done. All right, so let's get on with this. Back to Abraham and Sarah. All right, chapter 12, verse 1. And now the Lord had said unto Abraham, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. All right? And I will make of thee a great nation. I will bless thee, and I will make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee, and then in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. All right. I hear this all the time, like online on videos, bless Israel and you'll receive a blessing. This is what they're talking about. That nation that he's talking about is the house of Jacob. That becomes the house of Israel, the 12 patriarchs and 12 tribes and all that stuff that we studied about in the book of Exodus, right? Well, we're getting ready to get into all where that all comes from. So you can begin to see how Genesis and Exodus, how they begin to roll in. As we study more about the book of Genesis, we'll understand even more and more about the book of Exodus as we're going through it. All right, and all this ties together really nice and neat. But that's where that comes from. So Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. Now Lot, well, let's just wait, it'll tell you who he is. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abraham took Sarai, and Abram took, excuse me, I've been saying it wrong. This is Abram, his name's not been changed yet. And Abram took Sarai, his wife, her name will be changed to Sarah later, right? And Lot, his brother's son, right? So Lot's the nephew of Abraham. And all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go to the land of Canaan, all right, back to Canaan again, and in the land of Canaan they came. All right, so they have a lot of stuff. Now, I think this town that they're from, Haran, is, I might be wrong, but it is, I believe it is in Iran, the modern day Iran today. I might be wrong about that, but it's something like that. So he's taken out of that land then and back then into the land of Canaan. Oh, excuse me. Listen to what it says, verse 6. And Abraham passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the land of Moriah, and the Canaanites was then in the land. And the Lord appeared unto Abraham and said, unto thy seed will I give this land. Okay, so now this is the first promise then, right? And they built an altar unto the Lord, Yahweh, who appeared unto them. All right, so he has a promise made right there that to Abraham's descendants then will the land of Canaan and much of the rest of that region actually belong to before it's over. All right, now, if you go back into other studies that we've had that were related to this, then they crossed the Jordan, and that was where they had the cities of refuge then that are set up all along the Jordan River on each side, inhabiting the land of Canaan. If you've studied the book of Numbers, you'll know that it's in that land that they went and that they got so scared of the giants that they had to wandered around for 40 years. So this is it's a really plush land. When they send in the book of Numbers, all these people, these 12 men, adult men into this region, when they come back out, they're carrying grapes that one cluster has to be supported by 2 men with a staff in between them. So this land is a plush and wonderful land, okay? It's not just some average arid, dry land like you see now. Especially back then, it was a wonderful place. Verse 8, and he removed from thence into the mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west, and Hai on the east. And there he built an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abraham journeyed, going on still toward the south. Now there was, verse 10, and there was a famine in the land, and Abraham went down into Egypt to sojourn there. Sound familiar? It's going to be repeated in the book of Exodus. That's what happens with Jacob and his bunch. They all go down in the land of Egypt again. It seems like Egypt always was really helping the early inhabitants of Israel along a lot. I mean, in Egypt, for 400 years, they're protected by Pharaoh. And here, again, there's another famine. They're going down to Egypt again. So, and in fact, I can't remember what book it's in even. But there's at least one place that God promises Egypt that they'll always be a base nation. They might not be a world power, but they'll always be around and always have been since even these days. Egypt was a nation even in this time. And it has remained so ever since. I mean, sometimes they're a really great ally to have. Other times, not such a good one. Takes some good with the bad, but anyway. Verse 11, it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, behold now, I note thou art a fair woman to look upon. Abraham is acknowledging that Sarah is really a beautiful woman here, you know. All right, and it won't be the last time this beauty is acknowledged. Verse 12, therefore it shall come to pass when the Egyptians shall see thee, that thou shalt say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. All right, now, get what he's saying. Abraham's being smart here, all right? And he's setting this up. He's just telling Sarah, okay, Sarai, look, when we go down here, if they ask you if I'm your husband, you say no. All right, he's going to tell them, say we're brother and sister, which isn't, like I said, they're half brother and sister, so it's not really a lie. All right. And the reason being is because Abraham knows if it says, it's your wife, that Sarah is so pretty, all right, that they'll just kill him and take her to wife. And he understands this. I said, so we got to play this a little bit different. And he knows then that if they say, well, my brother and I kill my brother, she'll reject you all out because you killed my brother for no reason. All right. So he's doing his best to protect both of them. All right. And so this is the little scheme that he cooks up with her is what we're going to say. All right. Verse 13. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. All right. So if you say this, they won't kill me. All right. And just take you. And it came to pass that when Abraham was coming to Egypt, that the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair. And again, even the Egyptians believed. Abraham's already acknowledged how beautiful she was. Now the Egyptians are looking at Sarai and going, man, this woman's beautiful. Verse 15. And the princess also of Pharaoh saw her and commanded her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. Man, imagine how that, man. Same thing happens. Remember when Joseph sold off into Egypt? That's exactly the same place that Joseph lands. It's right in Pharaoh's house. Kind of amazing how that is, isn't it? All right. And he entreated Abraham well for her sake, and he had sheep, and the oxen, and asses, and manservants, and maidservants, and she-asses, and camels. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abraham's wife. All right, so that's all he's saying. It just kept her safe. These are the things that kept them safe in this. All right, and Pharaoh called Abraham and said, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Okay, so now he's figured it out. He's figured out, wait a minute, this woman is not. This is going to say a lot about this guy, all right? Because he's concerned that now he's messed up because he wants this woman, but now he realizes now that this is Abraham's wife, all right? And his concern is going to be that, oh, wait a minute, you made me just about sin doing this. And it's going to kind of tick him off a little bit. And it just kind of shows you that maybe Pharaoh had a little bit of, or the people that they're talking about here had a little bit of an awareness of the morality of what was going on. Wait, I can't do this because this, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's going to kind of tick him off because it's kind of put him in a hard place. Now he could have really screwed up, really bad, because God was going to what? Bless Abraham and his seed and curse anybody who cursed him. And if he takes Abraham's wife in that kind of deal, he understands then that he's going to be like the Pharaoh that we've been reading about in Egypt on the other end of that. Those plagues that we were talking about, all right? And so that's just what's really going on in the guy's head. And it doesn't really come through clearly that way, but that's really what he's worried about, that he's really screwed up because Abraham lied to him, or didn't really lie to him, but kind of twisted it to protect himself, and now it's put him in a bad spot. All right? So it tells you about the morality of the guy anyway, a little bit about him anyway. And Pharaoh called Abraham and said, what is it? Oh, verse 19. Why sayest thou, she is my sister, so I might have taken her to be my wife, all right? But therefore, behold thy wife, thy wife, take her and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away, and his wife and all that they had. All right? So he kicked them right out of Egypt over it. Okay, so Abraham kind of paid a price for trying to be a little bit shady. All right? But in reality, though, it worked out exactly like Abraham said it would. All right? So it just goes to show you how these things actually work. Now, apply that to the last days because that's the same thing. I mean, look at that. You're going to end up in, Pharaoh is the ultimate, or one of the ultimate, I guess Nebuchadnezzar is the ultimate archetype for the Antichrist, but so is Pharaoh. He's one of them too. All right? But here, just like in the last days, you'll see that inside of that house, the people that are there to do the things that they're supposed to be are well taken care of. And no matter how it goes, it always ends up working out just the right way. And you see these things a lot, like just like when we weren't planning to have the Passover lesson sent out just like it did. I mean, it just kind of worked out that way last week when we were talking about it. I can't help but think that that's how a part of God's Spirit at work too, making sense. Because it's not the only time that these things have happened like that, especially when we start teaching how they line up, especially with books that Genesis and Exodus. But nonetheless, that's chapter 12. Right, let's go on 13. Now, here we go. And Abraham went out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all he had, and Lot with him into the south. So they're out of Egypt, and Lot's with him, his nephew. All right. Abraham was very rich in cattle and silver and gold. All right. And he went on his journey from the south, even to Bethel, unto the place where his tents had been at the beginning between Bethel and Har, and to the place of the altar which he had made there at the first, where he first had the promise. All right. And there Abraham called on the name of the Lord. And Lot also, which went with Abraham, had flocks and herds and tents. So he's doing pretty good too. This is Abraham's brother's son. All right. So some of this property then undoubtedly is Abraham's brother, is who Lot's taking care of. Right. All right. So there's a bunch of them. And the land was not able to bear them. All right. You got too many people, too much cattle, all in too tight a spot. All right. This is a problem that we run into today in modern farming all the time. Overgrazing causes problems in the environment. Things like this. So this is how they rectify it, all right? Verse 7, and there was strife between the herdmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. All right? And the Canaanites and the Perizzites dwelt there in the land. All right? So you had these people in there. Well, now, tell you what, if you ever met a farmer and his cows, a farmer taking care of his cows is a very particular person. Be the male or female when it comes to his cows or her cows. All right. And we talk about these herdmen. These herdmen are in charge of vast flocks. And their primary concern isn't the loyalty between Abraham and Lot, it's the cattle that they tend. All right? So when it comes to competition, no matter who the competition is, each set of herdmen think that that's their land, all right, and that the other ones can just shove off and go somewhere else. All right, so there's big strife building. And let me tell you, we've had range wars in Texas over this kind of an idea. All right, about people grazing in open ranges and borders and things like this over these same kind of ideas. So you know this stuff is some real stuff when it comes down to herdmen and their cattle, all right? Verse 8, and Abraham said unto Lot, let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, all right, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we are brethren, all right? Rich men, we don't need to fight over this. We can come to a better resolution, all right? Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left. All right. So Abraham's saying it's just a good idea. We just split up. All right. We don't need any strife like this. It's going to get bad because these herdmen will kill each other over this. All right. And then they got a war among brethren then right there on this. So Abraham realizes the seriousness of it. So he's just like, no, Lot, let's just do this another way. Let's just, you go that way. If you want to go there, well, I'll go over here. This is a big country. All right. We'll just separate for a while. We'll come back later. All right, so that's Abraham's solution. Just still really logical, really down. I mean, you don't need no judge, a jury or anything. It's a good idea. All right, you take your stuff, you go south. I'm going to go this way and see you in the fall. That kind of an attitude. Verse 10. And Lot lifted up his eyes, and behold, all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere before the Lord, well watered before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou camest unto Zoar. So it's beautiful. All right. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. All right. So they didn't have any problem with it. Right. And Abraham dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the land of the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom. All right, now I want you to think about that statement because there's an important statement there. By telling you that Lot is pitching his tents toward Sodom, he's trying to tell you that Lot, his heart wants to go. All right, he's picked the Jordan Plain, and he sees Sodom on it. And he sets his pen up, so when he opens it up in the morning, he looks right at where he wants to go. All right. So understand how culpable Lot is in this kind of a journey, okay? All right. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes and look up from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. That's a long statement right there. How long were we to keep the Passover? Forever. How long were we to keep the law? Forever. I'm pretty sure we're still a part of that term, forever. Now, you see these things unfolding if you pay attention to the international news right now. Like our brother Israel, it's little Israel is really what it is. It's the southern kingdom. They're under assault right now. You have Esau's bunch in there with Russia's in there. You have Iran, the Assyrian. This is the group that scattered the 10 tribes out into the world. They're all crashing down on Israel. Right now, Iran's stated objective is to wipe Israel from the face of the earth. Okay, now these are the kind of things that they're living with there. And when they talk about a threat, they got the Muslim Brotherhood, they got Hamas, they got all these groups right outside. I mean, they can stand here and look like it's like looking across the town. And that's how close they are. Now, they've been having some internal strife right now. So look for things to really heat up in the Middle East, especially as the days continue to extend into the last days. You got to remember, Jerusalem is the hot spot. That's where everybody's going to eventually be focused. So something, all right, is going to take us from a condition of war that we exist in right now. Remember what it said in Daniel. It says, or even in the New Testament even, it says you go wars and rumors of wars. That's normal. All right, we got that aplenty. The horsemen running like crazy, killing each other on a personal level, on an international level. All these are happening and coming to seed now. All right, let's get back on track. That's enough of that. But you get the point, all right? All this that we're talking about right now is still unfolding right now, all these things. And it's going to become important when we start talking about how the attitudes towards each other, like as Abraham dies. Because Isaac and Ishmael, when they meet to bury their father, they don't have any problem. All right? And so all that stuff means something to us in the last days, so we got to kind of keep all that in mind as you go through and learn. Because this stuff is still very pertinent to what we're seeing and experiencing right now. Okay. But nonetheless, let's get on with it. And I will make thy seed of the dust of the earth, so that man can number, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be the number. And that's a pretty big promise. And you think about down through time how this has come to pass. Now, when we think about Israel, generally we think about one tribe, the tribe of Judah. But there are 11 other tribes that are part of this promise here. So by the time you add up all that, that is a huge amount of people, right? Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. And Abraham removed his tents and came and dwelt in the land of Miram, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. So that's another altar than that Abraham has set up. All right, let's see where we're at here. All right, I think we're going to stop there tonight because I want to take Sodom and Gomorrah as one unit, and it's too long to cover before we all get too tired to continue. And besides, I'm starting to stutter as I read anyway. That's just a good time to stop. I'm kind of tired anyway. But, and you got to work tomorrow. But, all right, so we're going to stop there for tonight. Now, so here we have the setup for the rest of the next section then of Genesis, all right? And they start having kids. And here we're going to, well, it was after Lot and them get out of Sodom and Gomorrah. We're going to start talking about the actual children, Abraham and Sarai, and actually another woman, Hagar, and then later even another woman, which were the sons of Keturah. So Abraham has 3 wives, actually. Now, I've got to correct myself because I went through this I've often taught this more than once, actually, and I shouldn't have because it's wrong. That Abraham was never married to more than one woman at a time, but I was very wrong about that. And we'll cover that here the next time, within the next couple of chapters, anyway. But nonetheless, there's that one. But that's the thing about this, right? If you think there's everybody that's ever stood up to teach anything about the Bible that got it all right all the time, well, you're just mistaken. It's right. You work, and I mean, I've spent a long time working on something and then come to the realization that what I thought, that's nowhere close to what was actually there, okay? And that happens often, all right? But you got to realize that's where you begin to separate yourself from other people at that point, all right? So that's just something to keep in mind, all right? That should be enough said about it to you. But anyway, you guys have a good night. We'll stop that one, and then I'll have to press stop again. Come on, stop.